There are people on the internet with 1 million followers who are worth less than the man who owns the septic truck parked outside their building. Not as a metaphor, literally. You can see these people sometimes, the ones who quietly own things. Worn boots, faded truck, sunburnt arms. They don't perform ambition. They don't narrate their journey. They're just operating. While an entire generation spent years building personal brands for strangers, these people were signing contracts nobody envied. And at some point, without announcing it, they became financially secure in ways most people never notice. Not rich like the headlines, not rich like the pitch deck, rich like the infrastructure. The kind of wealth that doesn't need your attention to compound. It just needs your city to keep functioning. And your city, every single day, keeps functioning.
1. Septic tank and sewer services. Start here, because the slight discomfort you just felt, that is the business model. When a septic system backs up at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, nobody compares prices. Nobody reads reviews. Nobody says, "Let me think about it." They call, they pay, and usually they're relieved someone answered. Panic mixed with helplessness is one of the oldest pricing structures in existence. Emergency rates, maintenance contracts, municipal agreements that renew automatically because the alternative is a public health situation nobody at City Hall wants to manage. The city breaks, they get paid. The operators who understood this early didn't just build a business, they built a local monopoly nobody can see from the road. Nobody wants to brag about owning a sewage company. They just quietly retire earlier than everyone else. 2. Pest control. Fear is one of the most recurring expenses in modern life, and the economy monetizes it quietly, everywhere, all the time. A rat in the kitchen, termites found during a home inspection, cockroaches in a restaurant kitchen at 6 a.m., 90 minutes before the health inspector arrives. These aren't inconveniences, they're emergencies with almost no price resistance. Pest control operators lock in recurring contracts with commercial clients who legally cannot operate without them. Hotels, schools, food manufacturers. These clients aren't shopping for a service, they're managing liability. And when you're managing liability, you're not negotiating price, you're buying certainty. Fear doesn't go on sale. Fear renews every quarter because the thing being feared never actually goes away. A lot of wealthy people stopped caring about looking impressive years ago. They just kept signing contracts. And honestly, most people driving past these businesses every day never think about them again. That's usually the point.
3. Funeral homes. This is the one most people skip past quickly, which is worth noticing. At some point, funeral directors stop reacting emotionally to grief. Not because they're cold, because composure became the service. Think about what that actually means. In the worst moment of someone's life, completely disoriented, unable to make ordinary decisions, emotionally underwater, they hand everything to whoever is calm enough to take it. Price becomes secondary in moments like that, not because people stop thinking, but because the psychological weight of that moment makes comparison feel almost indecent. The loyalty this creates is unlike almost anything in consumer behavior. Families return to the same funeral home for generations, not out of satisfaction, but because switching feels like a betrayal of something they can't quite articulate. Large funeral service companies have spent decades quietly acquiring small local operations, not because the margins are dramatic, because the loyalty is. Some of these operators probably still think of themselves as middle class. They show up, they handle it, they go home. And the business keeps running, built entirely on the willingness to stay composed while everyone around them falls apart. 4 HVAC companies. In July, in Phoenix, when the air conditioning dies at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, people don't get quotes, they get desperate. HVAC operators stumbled into something most industries spend decades trying to engineer artificially: emergency pricing, maintenance contracts, and commercial relationships, all inside one business that nobody thinks about until they desperately need it. The real money isn't the service call. It's owning the relationship with the building. Annual contracts, preferred client status, commercial properties that call the same number every time. Because switching mid-season means certifications, documentation, liability transfer. Most people don't fully appreciate how hard it is to remove someone once they're embedded in a building's critical infrastructure. That's not loyalty. That's structural dependency. And that's not an accident. That's the model.
5. Commercial plumbing. Most buildings stay with the same plumbing company for years because changing sounds simpler than it actually is. One hospital, one apartment complex, one food production facility. A single commercial relationship can be worth $200,000 a year. Not because the work is exceptional, because leaving requires paperwork, inspections, liability reassignment. And whoever manages that building has already decided the disruption isn't worth it. Not loyalty, not satisfaction. Just the quiet economic reality that the pain of leaving has always exceeded the benefit of going. Once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. 6. Elevator maintenance. You've entered dozens of buildings today. You've never once thought about this. That's the entire competitive advantage. Elevator maintenance is government regulated, certification dependent, contract locked. Buildings cannot legally operate without certified inspections. Switching providers means recertification, documentation, liability transfer. So most buildings don't switch. The operator who earns the first contract often holds it for a decade. Not because they're exceptional, but because the system itself resists change. Regulation here isn't a burden on the business. It is the business. And honestly, a lot of these operators probably don't even think of themselves as wealthy people. They think of themselves as the person who handles this, who shows up, who fixes it, who knows the building. Wealth was a byproduct of the consistency, not the goal. Some people spend their entire careers performing ambition for an audience that will never matter to their financial life. These people just kept showing up to something nobody else wanted to do. And at some point, the math did what math does. 7. Roofing companies. 2 moments define the roofing market: when someone buys a house and when something fails. That's the entire sales cycle. But after a major storm, everything changes. Demand explodes. Supply can't scale fast enough. Emergency pricing applies. The operator who spent years building licensed crews and local reputation captures revenue in a single weather event that smaller competitors won't approach in a year. Add commercial accounts, warehouses, schools, retail chains, all under long-term maintenance contracts that don't soften when the economy does. Nobody makes a documentary about a roofing company. The numbers don't require one. 8. Commercial cleaning. Every night. Office buildings get cleaned every single night, without exception. Not because anyone arranged it freshly, because the contract exists, and dirt accumulates regardless of market conditions. During the 2008 financial crisis, offices got dirty. During every recession since, offices got dirty. Hospitals don't pause cleaning contracts because indices fall. The operators who quietly built this, multiple crews, dozens of commercial accounts, built a cash flow machine that runs every night in the background of every city. Invisible, necessary, almost impossible to disrupt. Some people spend their whole careers trying to build something recession-proof. These operators just showed up every night and cleaned something. 9. Equipment rental. The construction site near you doesn't own most of what's on it. Compressors, mini excavators, scissor lifts, aerial platforms. Most of it is rented because owning idle equipment is expensive and renting as needed is rational. Buy the machine once, rent it hundreds of times. At some point, it's paid off and just keeps paying. There's a gravel lot on the edge of most industrial towns. Some machinery, a modest office, a sign nobody remembers.
it looks like nothing. That operation might be holding $3 million in assets, generating consistent monthly income for an owner whose name you've never heard and who has no particular interest in being heard. 10. Local repair services. The electrician your neighbor calls at 8 p.m. on a Sunday. Not a platform, not an app, just a name someone saved in their phone 3 years ago and never thought to replace. Reputation compounds here differently than anywhere else. Every job becomes a referral that costs nothing. Every referral becomes a relationship. Every relationship becomes a call the next time something breaks. And something always breaks. The operators who built a name inside a single community, a few square miles, a corridor of streets, generate incomes that would genuinely surprise the people who drive past their vans every morning without registering them. Necessity has never once required anyone's attention to stay necessary. 11. Scheduled maintenance and emergency response. There is a specific thing most people desperately need and almost nobody thinks to sell directly. The certainty that nothing will go catastrophically wrong. Package that as a contract, a retainer, a 4-hour response guarantee, and you've reached a customer who negotiates less, stays longer, and refers more consistently than almost any other type. This isn't a service category. It's a psychological product sold to people whose professional survival depends on nothing failing. When you're selling certainty to someone who gets called at midnight when something breaks, the conversation almost never comes about price. Some people spend their whole careers inside glass towers. Other people quietly own the contracts that maintain them. Neither group thinks much about the other. 12. Personalized 3D printing. Most people imagine hobbyists, small figurines, novelty items, a machine in someone's garage. The actual business is different. Custom components for manufacturers, rapid prototypes for engineers on deadline, short production runs for companies that can't justify traditional tooling costs. These clients come back, not out of loyalty, out of operational dependency. You already know their specs, their tolerances, their revision cycles. Starting over with a new vendor means rebuilding that institutional knowledge from scratch. In industries where time and precision matter, familiarity is worth considerably more than a lower quote. 13. Landscape design and maintenance. Commercial landscaping is not aesthetics. HOA contracts covering hundreds of properties, corporate campuses, hotel grounds where appearance scores affect revenue, municipal contracts running year-round regardless of season, signed quarterly, often annually, by clients who would absorb a modest rate increase without significant resistance, because finding, vetting, and onboarding a new vendor is a problem they simply don't want to own. The operators who built this quietly owned equipment, multiple crews, 30 stable accounts, built revenue structures that function largely without their daily presence. Nobody posts about landscape maintenance. The people doing it well seem to actively prefer it that way. 14. Pet care services. Economists were genuinely caught off guard by this. During downturns, pet spending held. Not slightly, it held. People deferred vacations, delayed purchases, cut discretionary spending in almost every category. They didn't cancel their dog's grooming appointment. Switching a groomer generates something that functions like guilt. Switching a boarding facility feels irrationally like a form of abandonment. There are people spending $400 a month on a pet's wellness routine who couldn't tell you the net worth of the person who owns the grooming studio. And the person who owns the grooming studio could probably tell you. Irrational loyalty at scale is just predictable revenue with a warmer story attached. 15. Moving services. People always move. Death, divorce, new jobs, children leaving, parents needing care. The demand doesn't correlate with economic cycles the way most businesses do. Life transitions create the need, and life transitions don't consult the market first. The real architecture of a moving business isn't the individual customer. It's one relationship with a real estate agency, one contract with a corporate relocation firm, one referral agreement with a property management company. One commercial partnership can quietly transform the entire revenue structure of the operation. The operators who figured that out early stopped running ads a long time ago. Modern ambition has a very specific shape: visible, narrated, optimized for how it appears to people who will never actually matter to your financial life. And quietly, in the background, a different kind of operator just kept showing up to unglamorous things. No audience, no documentation, no one watching. 16. Fresh produce subscription delivery service. Once convenience becomes routine, it becomes psychologically almost impossible to remove. Weekly delivery, recurring billing, customers who enrolled and then simply never left because cancellation requires a deliberate decision, and most people never quite make that decision. Passive inertia of a subscription runs on human psychology more than product quality. Local operators who built this infrastructure before national platforms arrived hold positions that are genuinely difficult to displace. Farmer relationships, community trust, last-mile logistics already optimized over years. That's not a subscription business. That's infrastructure dressed as convenience. 17. Scrap collection and resale. Most people have never once thought about where demolished buildings go. The steel framing, the copper wiring, industrial electronics, construction overflow. It doesn't disappear. It moves through systems the mainstream economy stopped paying attention to a long time ago. The operators who built those yards, who own the routes, who have standing relationships with construction crews and manufacturers offloading surplus, built commodity businesses with recurring supply chains that cost almost nothing to maintain once established. The material keeps coming. The relationships keep delivering it. The market keeps absorbing it. Most people drive past these operations every week and see a gravel lot with old metal. That's usually exactly what the owner wants them to see. 18. Ice manufacturing. Ice is one of the oldest commercial industries, still operating almost exactly as it did a century ago. Restaurants, bars, food distribution, construction sites, hospitals, emergency response. They all need it. On schedule, without disruption. And regional ice supply is dominated, almost structurally, by whoever built the delivery routes first. The relationships are old. The logistics are optimized. For a restaurant receiving ice 3 times a week, the disruption of switching suppliers simply isn't worth the comparison. Quiet regional ice operation with stable commercial accounts is effectively a local monopoly operating completely below cultural visibility until the ice stops arriving. And then people notice with a speed that tells you everything about how dependent they actually were. 19. Compliance consulting. Every new regulation is new demand. That's the entire model, and it cannot be disrupted because disruption generates it. Industries subject to government oversight need help navigating requirements that carry real legal consequences for getting it wrong. Compliance consultants operate on retainer, not because clients love paying retainers, but because the cost of non-compliance in fines, shutdowns, liability vastly exceeds the consulting fee. This is a business that grows automatically as regulatory complexity increases. Regulatory complexity has increased continuously for as long as governments have existed. Every political cycle adds rules somewhere. Every rule adds clients. There is no version of the future where this becomes less necessary. 20. Window cleaning. And here, because this is the one that says everything. A man with a squeegee. Equipment, insurance, a safety certification. A contract to clean the windows of a 35-story office building every 6 weeks for the next 3 years. Some people spend their entire careers working inside those towers. Other people quietly own the contracts that maintain the glass they look through. Neither group thinks much about the other. That contract renews because switching vendors on a high-rise means new safety documentation, new access protocols, new liability agreements. The friction of leaving protects the revenue. Most people looked at this and saw the squeegee. The man with the squeegee saw a reoccurring contract nobody else wanted badly enough to fight for. He signed it, then signed another, then hired someone else to hold the squeegee. At some point in this video, something shifted. Not excitement, something quieter than that. The slow recognition that the world you move through every day, the buildings, the systems, the physical infrastructure of modern life, is maintained by people that modern culture trained you to look directly past.
And inside that invisibility, that structural, almost deliberate obscurity, is where some of the most durable wealth in modern life has been quietly compounding for decades. The businesses that make you flinch are often the ones that make the most money. The industries that feel beneath consideration are almost always the ones with the lowest competition. The operators nobody photographs are frequently the ones who own the most. This isn't accidental. It's the direct result of a culture that rewards what looks impressive, while quietly leaving everything necessary to whoever was willing to show up and do it. Some people spent their careers chasing industries that rewarded being seen. Others just kept pumping the septic tanks, maintaining the elevators, cleaning the windows on buildings they don't live in. And one day, without an announcement, without a launch, without a single post, they were fine. Quietly, completely, permanently fine. And honestly, most of them probably don't think of themselves as wealthy people. They just think of themselves as the person who handles this, who shows up, who knows the building, who answers when something breaks at midnight. The wealth was just what happened when they kept doing that long enough. Rich explain the systems behind the surface, what most people spend their whole lives not quite seeing.